tweet at us. Let's know the reality of the situation as we're dealing with the bread and butter issues as against what the Food and Agriculture Minister will tell us this evening. But let's go for the Ghana brief for tonight.
A section of the public cast doubt over the September 30 deadline for SIM re-registration. Minister for Communications extended the deadline following concerns that millions of telco subscribers had not acquired their Ghana cards.
This one is too complicated. I came here 4 a.m.
The Member of Parliament for Waliwali, Lariba Zuwaira Abudu, has been appointed as Minister Designate for Gender, Children and Social Protection. Lariba Zuwaira Abudu, currently the Deputy Gender Minister, replaces Adjo, who was sacked after several months of absence. One of Ghana's iconic actors, Prince Yosin, popularly known as Wache, has died aged 52. The celebrated actor, shot to fame for his role in local Ghanaian series Akan Drama on GTV in the 1990s and Trotro on TV3. He died at the 37 Military Hospital on Tuesday afternoon after a short illness. LPG consumers in Kumasi have been hard hit by the withdrawal of services by LPG operators. Several consumers who went to refill their cylinders were left stranded and had to return home disappointed.
Well, this is Ghana Tonight, and you can find more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This evening, we have a conversation with the Food and Agriculture Minister. Look, you go to the market, you come face to face with the increasing prices of foodstuff on the market. And guess what? The money that you have in your pocket, the income, remains the same while food prices have been rising over the period. In fact, we're talking about inflation of 29.8%. primarily as a result of the increasing prices of foodstuff on the market in a country that we are an agrarian economy. Look, 11.3 million people are into agriculture in this country. This according to the Ghana Statistical Service own census data. So what's happening in the agricultural sector? Stay with me. But we went to the market briefly to interact with some market women about the state of affairs. The reality check. Take a look.
So this 20.
This one is 20 cedis.
The transportation is 30 cedis. And the guy who will bring it out for me to sell, she also take 10 cedis.
We say 80. Enti ade a chen ade ye koya nim ni nyina na ekoso we season bia adua eyesa enti e bia fi June July mu kra de mu be den se nyame na ye nyame na osesen wi anya sa June July no we bia be beduru 100 Ghana car ne de ha yem pa car no na ama enema no so bo akosoro because car no me da me menti ase je se obia de opa bia na ode to ne first no oje.
So that's the situation in the market. But what you see behind me is, according to the Ghana Statistical Service, some selected food items that have contributed to the inflation rate of 29.8%. And while we are at this point, look, I'm going to do something beyond these figures. We'll bring some meaning to these figures and why you should be concerned about the state of affairs. Take a look at the vegetables, right? Vegetables, the rate of increase between April and May is about 1.2%. When you go into the market, you experience it. Your food prices, as vegetable prices have gone up. Cereal products as well, we've seen an increase, milk, dairy products, and eggs. Eggs, a crate of egg now, depending on the price, that's the size of the crate of egg. The medium is about 27 cedis. And you have the large also going about 32 to 35 cedis, depending on where you are buying it. The small size egg is about 25 cedis a crate. Now, because of what the poultry farmers are going through in this country, serious challenges they're having with feed, and then also the increasing cost of production. What you see as well, the next, is ready-made food, and then also, which has seen an increase by about a percentage point increase over the next period. Also, other sachet water, we saw prices going up, and then also some other forms of that's bottled water, you saw an increase in the prices as well that over the period. Now, questions have been raised about the interventions that must be put in place to at least address these increases we've seen over the period. Look at this: live animals and meat, sugar, desserts, cocoa drinks, fish, and other seafood. That's what you see there. And we're importing tons of sugar into this country. It raises questions about what is being done effectively to revive the fortunes of the Commander Sugar Factory, for instance, as one of the interventions to address this increase we are seeing. Now, take a look at this. The types, or that's the food stuff that we import into this country, and why we should really be importing such food items at this time in an economy where we're saying we're in a green economy. We have so many people into agriculture, at the point 60% of the country's population into agriculture. Why should we be importing these food items? Take a look at this. And the food items and the countries that we are importing from. China, fish, pot fish, green tea, preserved tomatoes, sugar and confectionery, sauces and ketchups, chewing gum we import from China, fresh garlic, rice, and others. This is from the Russian embassy. The source for this is, you remember that over time, the Russian embassy has been releasing statements to challenge their Greek ministry, and indeed government's position that because of the Russia-Ukraine war, that has contributed to the increasing prices of foodstuff on the market. Look, Vietnam, we import rice and others, poultry, oil and fat, beef, fish, alcoholic drinks, to the tune of 277.5 million. The China imports about 322.2 million. Look at the things we import from China. And then you see there, fish, green tea, all from China. Brazil, we import sugar, poultry, prepared meat products, and you have alcoholic beverages and others from Brazil to the tune of over $184 million. Look at this, Russia. This is where the emphasis is that Russia has always made the point that we are the least of their problems, really, when it comes to the impact on the food prices on the market. Here are the things we import from Russia: wheat, frozen fish, you have the beef, poultry, and others. This is the total of the imports, over $2.7 billion. So these items we're importing, what's the plan? What are the interventions the government is thinking about to at least support the farmers in this country at a time as this? Now, I sat with the Food and Agriculture Minister, Dr. Osue Akoto, to find out from him specific interventions that have been put in place, and also what the Russians have been saying, that look, don't blame us for the problems and the increasing foodstuff prices we're having on the Ghanaian market. Russia says it's not their fault. What's the ministry saying? Take a look. You're a farmer yourself, correct? Yes. When you talk to farmers on the ground, what are the difficulties they tell you they're facing at the moment?
If we go to industry, the industrial manufacturers face difficult, everybody faces difficult, but that's not the point. The point is, here as the policymaker, as government, what are we doing to encourage farmers to better their lot? And we are using a very inclusive strategy, which is why we are focusing on smallholders, because they are some of the lowest wage earners you can find in Ghana. So if we are going to help them to increase their productivity, it means that you are carrying the whole country, not just leaving them behind and focusing on the few selected commercial farmers. That will help this country. And the problem that we are facing about high cost of food It's nothing to do with the shortage of food on the market. You go to the producing areas, you see exactly what I've just come back, 5 weeks ago. I mean, there's plenty of stocks, and that's not even for this year. This year's harvest is yet to come. We're talking about leftovers from last year's crop there. The issue is you go and buy a basket of, say, 150 cedis of tomatoes, and then it comes to Kumasi, suddenly it becomes 400 cedis.
And have you identified why that is the case?
Well, yeah, there's some profiteering going on, because you cannot account for the fact that the 6 months, the first 6 months, there have been 3 increases in prices of petrol because of what is happening on the world market. That has nothing to do with this country, because really we're a net importer of, so what happens on the world market is what we take, right? So if the prices have gone up, they haven't gone up twice or 3 times. The petrol prices haven't gone up, hasn't doubled or trebled.
It actually has doubled. In fact, we started this year 6 cedis, 85 pesos per liter for petrol. And now we're buying petrol at 13 cedis. So it has actually doubled.
Yeah. If it's doubled, it doesn't justify the trebling of prices on the even wholesale prices in the urban areas. It doesn't. So we need to, there's some profiteering going on. It's because the producing areas, prices are still there, the produce is there, much cheaper, far cheaper than in the urban areas. There's no justification to say that because fuel prices are doubled, and therefore the produce price should treble from the farm gate.
But you acknowledge that the impact of the cost of transportation on the traders is a valid and legitimate concern.
Of course it is. I mean, everybody
will definitely pass on the cost of transportation onto the price of the food product that we, the final consumer, go and buy.
Yeah. That is beyond the farmer. You are saying that the farmer in transport, and I'm saying that the farmer stays on his farm.
I'm talking about the trader now, who goes to buy from the farm gate. Because yes, the food stuff would be at a cheaper price at the farm gate. Not everybody can travel to the farm gate. So the food will be available there, but the affordability question is as important as the availability question as well. So if it is transported and the cost is going to go up, because the trader is calculating the transportation cost and passing it on to the final consumer, certainly that should be of concern to you, the ministry.
Of course it is of concern to me. It is of concern to me because it's not proportionate. The price that the final consumer pays in Accra does not reflect all the costs if you put it all together. It's more than. So somebody is making a buck, making a supernormal profit.
What are the interventions the ministry is thinking about to, for instance, address the impact that the cost of transportation is having?
Well, the cost of transportation is to do with the Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Transport. So it's a cross-cutting issue.
Because there are proposals that you are going to, for instance, consider or giving some fuel coupons to some of these tractors that go and transport these foodstuff from the farm gate to the various markets. Is this something that you're considering?
Well, yeah, I mean, we've been considering all kinds of things, but we've been talking to all the players in the value chain, the transport owners, the market women, even the porters who load and offload these vehicles, just to try and understand the elements. And we've had a series of meetings with them. We're going to do this pilot scheme with the market women where government was going to provide some transportation for them to take to the Tamale and Tachima and others to bring food, on the understanding that the prices will be at a certain level because there's a subsidy involved.
The reason why I asked earlier about your interaction with the farmers is that I have also been talking to some of these farmers, and one of the concerns they raise is the cost of input. Fertilizer prices are going high because they say that, in fact, they don't understand why you reduced the subsidies to 15% at a time when they thought that they would actually get an increased subsidy from the ministry so that they'll be able to produce more, to be able to at least ensure that the global factors does not impact on us the way we are seeing now.
We don't produce agricultural chemicals in this country. We import everything. So we are dependent upon the global market. We cannot shield ourselves from it. And there's a limit to what budget I have in this ministry to subsidize these things. And one has to be realistic about it. It's affected everybody. not just the farmers, everybody, including you.
Indeed. So what led to the decision to reduce the subsidies to 15%?
Because if the price landed and the port of Accra, of Tema, used to be $350, and suddenly it goes to $1,000. I cannot afford to keep 50% because you have to use, everything is priced in dollars, and the dollar price has trebled in just a matter of 9 months. So the CD that you need from your budget to buy the same quantity has gone through the roof. So you cannot, where's the money to spend? You have to cut back on the subsidy.
And I don't know if you're aware that some of them have had to increase, in fact, reduce their farm sizes because of this increased cost of production.
Yeah, obviously some, but not all. Of course, some may reduce, others will go on the open market. Well, it's not only the subsidy which is the market. There's the subsidy market, there's also the open market. Yes. But people are buying on the open market.
And that is also going to lead to an increase in the cost of production.
Of course.
And then they will pass out the cost of production onto us. And that's what is influencing the increase in the prices of food stuff on the market.
Yes, you're right.
You acknowledge that?
Of course. I mean, but what else do you want us to do? The farmer has to make a profit. So if his cost of production goes up, whoever is benefiting in terms of consumption has to ultimately pay for it. This is very simple. And that's why inflation is all over the country. Every country in the world is going through inflation. Not only Ghana. We cannot subsidize. If Ghana was exporting petrol, that's different. We are exporting a little oil and importing most of our requirements. So we are relying on the world market. There's nothing anybody can do about it. The consumer has to bear the cost. And I'm saying it's not just Ghana, everywhere.
The Russians say don't blame them for what's happening.
So that's what they will say.
But they've showed figures. They've given details of our engagement with them. They are the least on the radar when it comes to our problems.
That's their problem. That is their answer. I have a different answer.
But what's your answer as against
my answer is the answer. You think theirs is fact and mine is not fact. You think theirs is fact, but mine is not fact.
They've given some detail.
I was also giving you detail. And you think theirs is fact and mine is not fact.
Well, they have presented your data. Where is the ministry's data?
No. It's not what happens in Russia. It's what happens to the global economy. Please, let's get this right. It's not what happens in Russia with markets. It's what happens, what COVID has had on the global economy, which matters. So I think that we need to raise the question in a different way. The
position of the Russians have always been as against, in fact, contrary to the point that you make, questions have been raised about if we actually could blame them for the lack of fertilizer or because we owe the fertilizer suppliers.
What I'm saying is that, of course, we owe the fertilizer suppliers, but it's all part of the whole disruption of the world economy.
How much do we owe the fertilizer suppliers?
I cannot give you the figures now because we've been paying over time, so I have to check to get my figures right.
But there's a plan to pay them?
Of course.
I see. And is it because you owe them, that's why they restricted the supply of fertilizer?
Well, we still have the arrangement. We have contracts with them.
And they are still supplying fertilizer to you?
Yeah, of course. They're supplying fertilizer. The amount that is being supplied is not enough. And it's not only in Ghana, it's everywhere.
What would be your assessment of the impact of the Planting for Food and Jobs program?
Without Planting for Food and Jobs, we will be going as hungry as our neighbors around West Africa, who are now coming to Ghana as a breadbasket to pick our surpluses to go, to the extent that we've had to actually limit it by saying we are temporarily banning export of our produce to the neighboring countries.
Are you sure about what you're saying? That without it would have gone hungry?
Of course. Like other West African countries are going hungry. And that's why they are coming to Ghana to pick our food, our surpluses. And you just have to travel to Ejura and other places to see in those days the number plates of trucks which are crisscrossing Ghana, picking up surpluses to go to feed their own countries. As far as Kano in Nigeria, they were coming here to buy paddy rice.
Well, look, this is Ghana Tonight. As an exclusive interview with the Food and Agriculture Minister, Dr. Osofri Akoto. The full interview that will be on New Day tomorrow morning, also on 3FM 92.7. Look, these are the issues he's talked about. He says, without plentiful food and jobs, we would have been as hungry as our neighbors. He talks about the impact of the transport fares and profiteering. He thinks that traders are just making supernormal profits off the back of the situation. He has a reply to the Russians as well. Stay with me. I have Edward Karewe in studio. He is the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, GAWU. Mr. Karewe, good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
And I have a lot of market women who are also watching at the moment to react to what the minister has said. Stay with me. This is Ghana Tonight. We'll be back shortly. We'll get into the conversation and responses to what the minister has said. We'll be back shortly. Stay with us. Well, welcome back to Ghana Tonight. We're live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. Look, you go to the market, you face the realities of the increasing prices of foodstuff. Let me hear from you. We're very interactive this evening. Edward Karewe is with us in studio, General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union. And Dr. Edu Ususakode is an economist who's going to be joining us via Zoom shortly. But Mr. Karewe, you heard the minister, just like our viewers. She went back and forth about profiteering, the reason for the food price hikes we're seeing. I drew his attention to the impact of the transport fares as a result of the fuel price increases. You're on the ground. What's happening? What's going on with the farmers and the traders?
Well, you know, we always want to cut the story short and looking at outcomes. You know, when you are saying you are doing well or a policy is doing well, you can measure it by its outcomes, not by what one says. Now, if the Planting for Food and Jobs had done well, this would have been the time that all Ghanaians would have seen that when we had crisis, the Planting for Food and Jobs has saved us from it. But here is the case, it does not even look as if there had been a Planting for Food and Jobs. Prices are just galloping, and we have no solutions to dealing with the prices of foodstuffs. Now, in one vein, you hear that there is food at the farm gate, but that it is the market women who are profiteering and making prices so costly or high in the urban centers or to consumers. That rationally doesn't connect.
Why do you say so?
Because why is it that this year alone that these market women and middle men and women will now choose to profiteer as against previous years? You see? And, you know, they have always been in the system. And in fact, if they were not in the system, you and I will not get food to eat. Because the food, we cannot go to the farm gate to bring the food to our table. It is the market women. So you just do not blame them. In another vein, he's saying that, look, cost of production has gone up. If cost of production has gone up, certainly the prices of the food will also go up. Therefore, it can no longer be the problem of the market woman. You know? And these are the things that we are just finding it difficult to understand. Because if you say there's food in the rural areas, yes, why is it that even just a while ago, some weeks ago, even the free SHS, they could not feed them? Because they are supposed to tap from the local market and buy that food and feed themselves. But they could not. Food has to be carried from Accra here to even the rural areas. You know, so you can see that there's a total policy disconnect in our system. And that constrains production, it also constrains consumption, and it creates unnecessary hardship for all of us when we could have been.
So what has contributed from the farmer's perspective, because you are the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, what has contributed to this increase in the price of foodstuff that we are witnessing on the market now? The minister is talking about profiteering. And even though he admits or admitted eventually that increases in fuel prices as well has contributed to where we are.
Well, let's put it this way. He has also acknowledged that much of the food that we've been consuming is what has been produced last year. And 2021, we had given an indication that we were going to have a shortfall in output, total agricultural output. And it is because we had a shortfall in total agricultural output, that is why prices of foodstuffs are galloping the way they are galloping, because there's less within the system. And once there's less within the system, and we all have to feed on it, then the price will go up. Now, in this month, July, prices of new foodstuffs have started coming. I've gone to, incidentally, I didn't know I was coming here. Incidentally, I went to the Marginal Market to get some fruits and foodstuffs for my family. And I bought a tuber of yam for 20 Ghana.
Yeah, that's what we showed on the screen before we started
and
this
is new yam.
So.
This fresh yam that is coming in, and that is the price. So it tells you that the food situation is hard, is very harsh on us. Some of us who even have incomes that we can go and buy, and yet we are crying. What about those who do not have incomes? So sometimes we should not underrate the impact of this food crisis on the Ghanaian populace.
Let me bring in Dr. Edu Sarkodie is a lecturer at the Department of Economics at the University of Ghana, Legon. He joins us via Zoom. Dr. Sarkodie, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us this evening. So at a time when I know a number of you have been advocating for an increased investment in the agricultural sector because of what's happening globally. Here, we've seen the subsidies of fertilizer reduced by 15%. I asked the minister, he says, look, he was given a budget and he had to spend within the budget, so he couldn't do anything about it. Could there have been other interventions to cushion the farmers to be able to produce more in this time?
We should have done those interventions earlier on, obviously to have a permanent solution to our problems. And as a country, I think that we'll always scratch the surface. We don't deal with the problem itself. Now, a typical example was in his admission that the fertilizer that we use are imported. The inputs that we use for agricultural production to produce food for us are imported. And this admission, excuse me to say, it doesn't go well with the whole program. I mean, how can you have a program that has run for close to 6-7 years, and the inputs that you need for the smooth running of the program are imported? It's not as if it's like 40% imported or 30% imported, almost 90 to 100% imported. And so whenever there's an exchange rate depreciation, it affects the prices of those production, of those agricultural inputs. So there is a serious problem with the agricultural production, right from the inputs to production, from production to storage, from storage to transportation, from transportation to before they get to the market for consumption. So throughout the chain, there are serious problems that we must deal with as a country and not just scratch the surface and then move on. You're talking about subsidy, and I'm saying that if we had our own fertilizer producing plant in the country, the subsidy wouldn't have been the solution. The permanent solution would have been to have our own plant in the country. If the government budget is not enough to support the establishment of a local plant, why don't we engage the private sector and make it a PPP arrangement? I'm sure there are so many people with funds who are ready to invest in agriculture. So we must try and have a permanent solution to these problems as a country. This over-reliance of imports from those countries is killing us. We don't know when the war is going to end. We don't know even if the war ends, how Ukraine is going to recover. It will take them more than 5 years to recover. We don't know that even after the Russia-Ukraine war, another war may, erupt again from another country. And if we depend on those countries again for our inputs, then we are going to suffer. So long as there are external shocks, we sit down as a country and we blame those external shocks without having the homegrown solution, as we always call it, to deal with the problem. If the Russia-Ukraine war is over and there's another war, maybe Germany or Spain or whatever, Italy, and we depend on them for something else, then we are still going to suffer until the war is over. Then another war erupts somewhere, and we're still going to wait and suffer before the war is over. I think that we should be serious as Ghanaians and find permanent solution to our agriculture. I heard you mention the fact that Ghana is an agrarian economy, and we have at the base of every economy is the agri and manufacturing. We can't run away from it. Ivory Coast is doing something right that we must copy as a country. Let's tackle the problem and deal with it.
Well, tackling the problem and dealing with it, Mr. Krawe, so talk about, for instance, the cost of inputs, because I know that's one of the major contributors to the increased cost of production that the farmers, you're facing now. Fertilizer. I asked the minister. He says they are paying the fertilizer suppliers, but you have to go onto the open market to buy fertilizer, correct?
Yes.
How much are you buying, say, 50 kg bag of any of the varieties that we have?
There's no fertilizer that is less than 200, 400 maximum, and somewhere you may not even get it. You know, that is the rate of fertilizer in the market because it varies from one place to another. Mm-hmm. Now, you see, I'm just disturbed that we are claiming that our neighbors are starving and Ghana is producing enough and we are now feeding them. That's not true. If you look at May, the Statistical Service, May inflation on regional basis, Upper East, which is bordering Burkina Faso and Togo, has the least inflation rate. The next region with the least is Volta region with 22%. Now, what does it tell you? Volta region is taking their food from Burkina Faso. And because the rate of inflation in Burkina Faso is low, they import low inflation into their country. Now, into their region. When you come to Upper East region, because Upper East region is just sharing a border with Upper West region, and they have the same climatic environment. And around May, that is the time that it is very lean. Lean in the sense that there's no food, they are about to plant, and they've consumed all their food. So price of food has gone up. In Upper West, food inflation for me was 35%. Now, why is it that Upper West is having 35% and Upper East is having 18%? It's because Upper East is bordering Burkina Faso and Togo. So Upper East takes its food from Burkina Faso and Togo. And because they have low inflation, they bring that one into their community and then drive down inflation.
So I know that, confirm this, that about 80% of the tomatoes that we consume in this country is imported from Burkina Faso.
Exactly.
That's the reality of the situation.
That is the reality on the ground.
80% of the tomatoes we consume in Ghana.
Now, if you have a country where we know that in every meal there must be tomatoes, and there is tomatoes, every meal, and yet we are unable to produce tomatoes to feed ourselves, and a country that is able to produce tomatoes to feed itself and feed us, that country has suddenly not having capacity to produce any of the grains, and that Ghana will now produce and distribute to those countries. It is not the case. The reality is different from what we are hearing from the ministry. Because if we choose to say that, okay, we are doing well, when in actual fact, if we are not, it's not so, we can go ahead and say that. And I'm telling you, go to those regions. Look, on market days, you wait for, in the afternoon, getting to the afternoon, or late morning, to have foodstuffs coming from those across the border to flood the market. Otherwise, when you buy early in the morning, then the foodstuffs are not there. It tells you practically, you go there on the ground, practically this is what is happening. So when we are hearing that, oh, we have so much, of course we can have so much. If you have so much, where is it in the market? How can somebody convince me that we have so much yam in the market, yet a tuber of yam is 20 Ghana?
So for you, the outcomes, it is what we are experiencing, what the Ghanaian people experience on the market is how we are going to measure the success of any policy? That is, the impact that it is having on our livelihoods.
Because
simple.
The Plan for Food and Jobs has got two major objectives. One, to produce food for consumption and industrial use, and then two, to create jobs. But here, we don't have the food, we don't have the jobs. Now, the minister has admitted that they are de-investing in agriculture. De-investing in agriculture because the government is spending less in agriculture for this year, 2022. Look, the total fertilizer that they are expecting to subsidize this year, even with their 15%, is about 25% of last year output, total output that they subsidized, which was 36%. With 36% last year, the total volume of fertilizer that they subsidized this year, with the 15%, they are subsidized about 25% of that volume.
So what it means that even with some of the inflationary factors being seasonal, and that some of the food items we are seeing prices go high being seasonal, even if those food items are in season, because of the increased cost of production of the farmers, we may not see a drastic reduction in the price of those food items.
One, today, prices of food should have been coming down, because we are receiving new foodstuffs. Yam, for instance, prices should have been coming down, but prices are still going up. And it is like that with the other foodstuffs. So what it is telling us is that we may, if the best for us will be a slight stabilization of the prices, but we should not expect to have prices come down to pre-May prices level. No.
So, Dr. Sarkodie, and this final one, clearly, with all these factors taken into consideration, we would have to be dealing with these increased prices of foodstuff on the Ghanaian market or the local market for quite a while now, even if the food is in season, but the farmers are producing at very high cost. Certainly, they're going to pass on the increase onto the consumer, and we may not experience any reprieve anytime soon. Doc?
Yeah, well, we expect that when the harvest starts kicking in, we expect inflation, or especially food inflation, to slow. But there are also serious questions about transportation and all that. And so the problems are, there are problems across the chain from production to consumption. And I've mentioned it, I'm repeating it, that at the production point, the inputs that are used to produce are all imported. So whenever there is a cedi depreciation, it affects the price of the input. So if you want to look at a broader picture of it, take a look at the PPI, the producer price inflation. It is really high. It is around 35 or 37%. So it is telling you that even at the production level, before we come and talk about the effect of transport and all that, even at the production level, prices are rising. Then you come to transportation, before farmers will top up the cost of transportation on their items, and so on and so forth, before it reaches the final consumer. So there are serious consequences, there are serious issues that we need to deal with as a country. But maybe with the harvest season or the season kicking in, obviously we cannot rule out the effect of seasonality on food prices. I think it will.
Sarkodie, I think I lost him briefly there, but he raises some very critical questions there about issues about investment and what the policy direction should be like. But coming back to the situation on the ground, and you are on the ground as that's the Junior Agricultural Workers Union, and your membership cuts across everyone across the agricultural value chain, correct? Yes. What are the realities of the issues that they are facing on the ground, as against what the minister told us?
Well, the realities are this: no inputs. Where they even get the inputs, they are beyond their means. Two, they have cut down their acreage. Their farm size have been cut down. They have reduced it. You see? And then we should be asking our policymakers, what is the logic of bringing in planting for food and jobs? And what is the logic of subsidizing fertilizer? Because the analysis was that there was low fertilizer application on our farms. And to increase agriculture fertilizer application, which will lead to increased yield per plot, then they have to subsidize the fertilizer. Because farmers could not, at that time, in 2017, buy the quantity that was needed to increase, increase production. So they have subsidized. The question you have to ask today is, are farmers now better off and are capable of buying the same quantities of fertilizer that is needed per plot today at the current prices than before, thereby warranting government to reduce the subsidy? Because we should know that it is a development tool. And when you cut it off prematurely, it will affect production. And what we are expecting is that this year, output will be very low because farm size has been cut down. Then total yield will also be low because there's low fertilizer application.
And that's going to create...
And that will create another price hike in 2023. Because at the end of 2022, we will harvest and we will continue to now depend on that food stuff for 2023 up to July this time, when we will begin to get new food stuffs coming in. You see, so the worry is not just about what is happening today.
Right.
The worry is about what steps are we taking to ensure that next year we don't find ourselves into this situation again or in the way.
So for you on the ground, you're not seeing any specific interventions that will answer that question about what we should be doing to avoid the 2023 analysis that you just put out?
No, we are not saying that.
Mr. Karawe, thank you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Edward Karawe is the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union. His membership cuts across the entire agricultural value chain. They know what's happening on the ground. They've been responding to some of the things that the minister told us in that exclusive interview. Stay with me here on Ghana Tonight. We're going to the northern part of the country. And a lot of things have happened today, and that's in the education sector. Because some students went on rampage, complaining about quality of the meals they are served. We've seen this happen over the period. This is Boko and Bogatanga Technical Institutes in the Upper East region have been closed down as we speak after the students went on rampage. Now, the principal of the Bogatanga Technical Institute, Zakaria Jorose, is going to be joining us to provide us with updates. But I want you to take a look at the level of vandalism that the students have engaged in, which has led to the destruction of some of the property of their schools. That's Bogatanga Technical Institute. Take a look.
Of Apambila Isaac. I am the commanding officer for Boku Technical Institute. The reason for this demonstration today is there are so many problems. There are so many problems, but I'm just going to highlight the main issues that we are facing on this campus. And one is about our sport activities. Since our first year time till date, no sport activities for us. Most schools have been going for inter-schools, inter-houses, but ever since we came here, we have never participated in any of them. No inter-houses, neither talk of inter-schools. And our food, we have so many problems at the food side. The food side, we don't get proper food. When you go there, there's no quality, no quantity. If it is no quality, at least there should be quantity so that we can also eat and satisfy. You see, and we place your food too much. And our exams, yesterday was the day that we started our first paper, 1st August. The masters was so harsh to the extent that even slapping people in the examination hall. Can you imagine a master said something in the exam hall that his child will never attend a public school, that he's going to send all his students to private schools. So for that matter, he's paid to invigilate. So for that matter, you will not allow any student to get the chance to write whatever he wants.
So what is the way forward? What do you want the authority to do?
We want them to fix all these problems, our lighting system, our food side. No, we are complete and we are going. But we need the best for our juniors. 90% of the campus is dark. No lights. Most of the classrooms, when you even go to preps, you cannot even prep because there's no lights. There's no lights. In the dining hall, no lights.
that's why the students have been complaining. That's why they went on rampage. But earlier in the day, the Upper East Regional Minister and head of the Regional Security Council, Stephen Yakubu, was at the Bogatanga Technical Institute to assess the extent of the situation and eventually sanction the shutting down of the schools. Look.
For government and for country. But you see, we are here because you know why we are here. I want one lady and one young man to tell me why we are all here. A volunteer lady. Volunteer. Okay, a man, a young man. Can you tell us why we are here? You don't want to tell us why we are here. But you know why we are here, right? You know why we are here. But you don't want to talk about it. Okay. Since you all know why we are here and you don't want to talk about it, then we will talk for you. We are not going to allow anyone at all to destabilize the peace that we have in this region. So, please concentrate here. Concentrate.
Also, that's the regional minister. But I'm going to run you through some of the incidents of riots in senior high schools. But take a look at the level of destruction that these students, and you heard what they've been complaining about. The dining hall doesn't have lights, and the food they are served is not nutritious enough. So this is it. They've broken windscreens and also destroyed the dining hall tables. That's the dining hall of the Bogatanga Technical Institute there. These two schools have been shut down. And it raises a number of concerns because even though it's been shut down, this is not the only incident we've seen in the not too distant past. Take a look at this. On the 9th of May, 2018, Zabzugu Senior High School, we had students attacking a teacher and police over examination malpractice because they went to sit for the exam, and the police officer who was assigned to the area prevented them from engaging in cheating, exam malpractice. They beat him up. On the 8th, that's the 4th of August, we saw this, Twenibu Akodia Senior High School. The same reason, students protested for being restricted in the supervision of their examinations, that the invigilator was so strict on them. So they ended up engaging in riots. Same with Indeura Jakpa Senior High Technical. The students vandalized school property in protest against social distancing in the exam hall because they said the spaces between them were so wide they couldn't copy or engage in malpractices. Bright Senior High School, remember this. Students protested the strict exam protocol. The same with Kumasi Girls High School. Remember, not too long ago, they protested after being denied midterm break. And then the recent one, Islamic Girls Senior High School, that clash with the police after the students protested against the pedestrian knockdowns. We know the police has also been investigating this particular incident. But this raises fundamental issues about discipline in the senior high schools. And Charles Ahatochega is a former Director General of the Ghana Education Service. He joins me via Zoom. Good evening to you. Thank you for your time this evening. I just ran through these cases to put the issues in context. What is happening in the senior high schools that's leading to the students resorting to riots to put out their concerns, like the food they are serving not being nice, and then also the lights not working in the dining hall. That's what led to this.
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to all the viewers. You have raised quite a very pertinent concern, and I think that it will be useful to look at it from a variety of angles and not to begin to conclude that students, there is something that is really happening that is causing students to go on, quote-unquote, a rampage. I think that, unfortunately, the lines of communication between the school and students seem to be breaking down. And I like your use of the word discipline. The whole conception of discipline also is beginning to take a variety of meanings and in terms of how it has to be expressed. So it's important for us to begin to look at things. And for me, this is, just as we cited, these are things that have happened beyond the period that you have even before the period that you have cited in your introduction. We've had cases like this. And in all of the cases, it has become evident that there has been a breakdown of communication in terms of how students should behave and how things should go. So this period may not be very different, but it also brings to light the need for us to begin to look at how to begin to communicate with our students and to help them to begin to see the things. Some of these things probably may not be their fault. Of course, for the examination malpractice, that was a serious misbehavior, which again had to we have to condemn. And it's important for us, from the way I said, that we should never condone examination malpractice of any kind, and students have no reason whatsoever to do anything in the area of examination malpractice. And that itself is a special case, and it can be dealt with, and I would not call that a lack of discipline. It's just a case in which a group of students want to do something by all means, and they create all of this, and that for me would mean that something is happening in the school which is preventing them from actually having value for money in terms of the time they need to spend. So that for me is the issue. Some of the other issues are still issues about breakdown of communication and how students should begin to express and understand the environment around them in terms of their behavior and conduct in schools.
Well, it's good that you break down, in fact, separate the issues, Mr. Ahatochega, because, for instance, with this one, it's not about examination malpractice. They are complaining about both schools, the food that they are served, and then also some of the amenities that they expect to be in place for them to be in school not being there. You talk about the breakdown in communication. Juxtapose that with the implementation of the strict disciplinary code of conduct or rules in there to whip them in line. What should the school authorities be doing, or the GES be doing, at least with this trend that I have just outlined? How should it inform policy direction to address this?
Yes, the other issue is we send children to school, we give them a certain understanding that things will happen. We tell them we are going to give them food to eat. We tell them that the schools will have the necessary things that will give them the kind of comfort they need to stay in the school. So children come to school. Now they come to school and they see something that is different. I mean, for these young adults, you need to be able to engage them about the challenges that the school is facing for them to see that maybe the problem is not local. The problem is external. And then for them to try and help them to begin to think through the issues. Now, when you begin to talk about discipline, I mean, it's like saying that when the school serves them food that is bad, they must eat. But these are young boys growing up who know what they want. When you serve them food that they don't like, they will react. But you can still give them food that is not very, probably not too tasty, and explain to them that there were a few challenges and for the time they could go. I remember that when I was in secondary school,
right,
we had a similar situation where we said that they gave us rice and corn beef stew. We said we won't eat the rice and corn beef stew, even though some of my seniors and other colleagues had already run with various bowls to the school to go and have their dinner. Meanwhile, the rest of us were revolting. Then the headmaster tells us and comes to us and explains the condition, and we go back and we eat the food.
Okay.
That's exactly the situation I'm referring to. So once you try and engage these young students in terms of the conditions that they are confronted with, you could have certain results coming out.
Right.
It's not a matter of real discipline, but it's a matter of beginning to engage them to understand their context and help them. But if we as adults feel them, this is the kind of reaction that we get.
Okay, Mr. Ahatochega, thank you so much for your time this evening. I really appreciate you staying up to at least comment on this and how the policy direction should be addressing this. Charles Ahatochega is a former Director General of the Ghana Education Service on this one. But before we go, while we commiserate with the family and friends of the late Ghanaian actor, veteran Prince Yosin, call him Wachi. That's what lots of you knew him for. Let's take a look at some of the smiles that he brought to our faces on the screens, doing what he loved most.
Hey, Jewa in China. Whoa, 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 Jewa in China. In China. Hey.
Anyway, okay, so, well, may his soul rest in perfect peace. Look, R.I.P. Rest in peace, Prince Yosin. On behalf of the rest of the team, thank you so much for staying with us here on Ghana Tonight. We're back same time tomorrow. An interesting conversation and engagement. My name is Alfred Okanse. Have a good night.